Good day, everyone. Let's discuss the remaining part of this lesson about text information and media text information. In our previous lesson, we focused on the text information, which refers to the written content that can be presented using different writing systems or alphabets, depending on the language, and also it depends on the audience. For example, the Roman alphabet, which consists of different letters like A, B, C, D, up to letter Z. It is commonly used for English and other languages like Spanish or French. However, other languages may also use their own unique writing system. For example, in Korean, uh, they have the what we call Hangul. Last time, we also discussed the different types of information, as well the provider of information. Some of the example of the provider are academic institution. We have also government agency, private individual, and different private sectors. In addition, we also discussed some of the creators of text information. I hope you can still remember those creators. Again, these are author, writer, contributor, columnist, blogger, editor, publisher, as well we have the journalists. Where when we say journalists, they are the individuals who gather, investigate, and report different news and events to inform the public. At the same time, these journalists or those journalists are guided by principles like accuracy, fairness, and accountability, which help to uphold the integrity of journalism. For the continuation, now let's discuss the different guide or codes interaction between journalists and their sources. This is to ensure clarity and trust. We have the deep background, on the record, and off the record. For the deep background, it refers to a journalistic practice where information provided by the source can be used by the journalist. But the identity of the source must remain entirely anonymous or cannot be identified in any way, not even indirectly. It is commonly used in investigation or when dealing in a sensitive topic. That is for the source safety, reputation, or relationships could be at risk if their identity is revealed. Kung saan, ano po, ang impormasyon ay maaaring gamitin ng mamamahayag. Ngunit, ang pagkakakilanlan ng pinagkunan ay kailangang manatiling lihim upang maiwasan yung mga panganib dahil nga po sensitibo yung impormasyon. Next, we have the on background. It refers to a situation in journalism where the information provided by a source can be used, but the source identity is not directly revealed. Instead, the source is described in general terms, which gives the readers or probably the viewers some context without disclosing the specific individual. For example, the dog of Miss Perez was murdered by his neighbor when she's not home, and she's only have one witness who can testify the face or even the information of the murderer. But the witness does not want to show his identity. Next, we have here the on the record. So here the information provided by a source that can be fully attributed to them. This means that the journalist can directly identify the source, such as mentioning their name, their position, or other relevant details. So This is considered the most straightforward and honest form of communication in journalism, as there is no uh, ambiguity regarding where the information came from. For example, here, a public figure openly speaks to the media during the press conference. The journalist quotes them directly as stated by the mayor. We are committed to improving public infrastructure. So here we can see that it is directly identify the source. Um, we mention here, or it mentioned here the name as their position and the details about improving public infrastructure. Then last, we have here the off the record that refers to the information that a source provides to a journalist with the understanding that cannot be published. So the purpose of this information is to solely give the journalist deeper context or guide them in terms of their investigation in the right direction. Since journalists cannot disclose the off-the-record information or the source in the reporting, they may use it as a foundation to seek out other publicly shareable facts or confirm the details through alternative sources. So we have here an example. A company insider tells us a journalist confidential details about a business deal but emphasizes it's off the record. The journalist listens but does not publish or report the information. So we can see here that um, they able to uh, know the information. However, it is just used for the journalist to deeply understand the context of the investigation. Now, let's focus on the Big Six model developed by Mike Einsberg and Bob. It is widely used information literacy framework that helps individuals solve problems and make decisions using information. So here we have the Big Six. First step, the task definition. Second step, the information seeking strategy. The third step, the location and access. The fourth step, the use of information. The five step, we have the synthesis, and the last step, or the step six, is the evaluation. So for the first step, the task definition, it involves identifying the information problem or question that needs to be addressed. This is the first step, and since it is the first step, it is also the most critical step in the information seeking process because we know that a well defined problem ensures a clear and focused approach. For the number two, once the problem has been identified, the next step is brainstorm and decide on the best uh, way or the ways to find the necessary information, where you consider all the possible sources of information. So you are already in the step two, the what we call the information seeking strategies. For the number three, you have to locate the selected sources and access the needed information or the information that need to gather. So these sources could be include sources that can be found in the libraries, uh, and other digital platforms. For number four, use of information, where in this step, it focuses on interacting with the content to extract the needed data, where like example, taking notes on the key points or the ideas that directly address the information problem or questions you are trying to solve. Then we have here for step five, the synthesis. I know most of you are already familiar with this. For in synthesis, It involves organizing and combining all the gathered information into a cohesive and meaningful final product or solution. And last, that always happen every after the discussion of final solution or product is the evaluation. So here in evaluation, it ensures that the goal has been met and identifies area for improvement. Now, there are things to remember in assessing and evaluating text information. First is the accuracy and punctuality that focus on ensuring the content is trustworthy and reliable. So through this, it only shows that by prioritizing this principle, text information remains credible and it serves its purpose of, like example, educating, informing, or influencing the specific target or specific audience. In connection with that, we have here the concept of the data triangulation, where it is a research method designed to enhance the accuracy, credibility, and reliability of findings by incorporating multiple sources or perspectives or methods. So, in this approach, it only ensures that the conclusion that we are trying to find are well supported and less prone to what we call the errors or other biases. So next is the what we call objectivity. So in text information, it only means that in presenting the content, it must be free from biases, prejudice, or any discrimination. So it is just to ensure that the information is balanced or fair to all sides. Third important term that you have to remember is the language appropriateness. Of course, when we say language appropriateness, it only refers to using the right level, right style of language based on your target audience or readers to ensure clear and effective communication since there is the right level or it is appropriate to your target audience or readers. So we have here the curriculum alignment. It only refers to ensuring that those textbook materials and educational sources are consistent with the prescribed curriculum and met the international standards. Of course, it guarantees that the content is effectively support different learning goals and um, for the global competitiveness as well. Next is the what we call style and format. So these are important or essential elements of written works because it only ensures clarity, consistent, and professionalism in presentation. Here in our slide, it only said that most books are based on CMOS or the Chicago Manual of Style when it comes to all editorial concern like capitalization, punctuality, and citation. On the other hand, in terms of academic papers, most of the time we follow the APA style or the American Psychological Association. So newspapers follow a particular house style depending on the news agency to which they belong. So these are the advantages of text information. First, it covers a wide variety of topics. It can access easily. It is well researched and comprehensively discussed. However, there are limitations of text information. Of course, it must be updated regularly. Why? To ensure accuracy and timeliness. Another, we know that text information can be lengthy, and since it is lengthy for the students, it's tiresome to read. Let's discuss the typefaces. So this pertains to different styles or visual appearances of text. Encompasses the shape and structure of letters, numbers, symbols, and other character. So first one, we have the serifs that is commonly typeface style characterized by small lines or strokes. The what we call serifs appear at the ends of the letters and symbol. Most of the time we use this typeface, and it is commonly used by some publications such as books, newspapers, magazines, and researchers. Some examples are the Times New Roman, Garamond, and Baskerville. Another typeface is the sans serif. So it is a typeface style that eliminates the small decorative strokes that is typically found at the ends of letters. So it gives a clean and simple and modern appearance. For example, we have here the Arial, Helvetica, Tahoma, Verdana, and Calibri. Next is the slab serif. So it is a typeface style that features thick black-like serifs, giving text a bold, heavy, and solid appearance. So it said here in our slide that this typeface usually used in large advertising signs on billboard. So example is the Rockwell and Playbill. Another typeface is the script typeface. So these are decorative fonts that mimic the appearance of cursive or calligraphic handwriting. So it is characterized by a brush-like or flowing stroke, were mostly used in formal events. So some of the examples are Edwardian, Vladimir, and Kansler. As we have the decorative typeface, also referred as display typeface. It is a highly artistic and visually striking fonts designed to capture attention and evoke specific emotions or themes. So this is widely used in different events also. Some of the examples we have Chiller, Jokerman, Curls Empty. Now, let's focus on the different design principles and elements. So, these are said as the building blocks or the guidelines that the designer used to create visually appealing and effective composition. So, here in our slide, we have the element of design. First is the emphasis. It only highlights the most important part of the design or the text. And to do this, the text can be enlarged, can be bold, like example here in our slide, or it can be italicized, darken, or lighten. It could also underline to show the emphasis. Second, we have the appropriateness. So in text, it refers to how well suited the content for its target audience or target readers, as well the intention or purpose and the specific event or context. For example, if you are creating an invitation for a formal wedding ceremony, it is important that the invitation feature a harmonious design with formal wording and clear and legible fonts to show the what we call appropriateness. Third is the proximity. So it is a design principle that focus on the spatial relationship between elements in terms of layout or composition. So in proximity, it enhances visual organization and readability. For number four, alignment, which refers to the proper positioning or state of adjustment of parts in relation to each other, which it targets balance, harmony, and visually appealing composition. Fifth is organization. So in design, it ensures all elements are structured in a way that not only separates them for clarity, but also maintains a sense of connection and flow. So we all know that having good organization not only makes design aesthetically pleasing, but also it improves functionality and communication. For number six, repetition, it helps to create unity, consistency, and a cohesive look. However, in various typeface, it might result in distraction and failure to communicate the content of the text. Last is contrast that enhances visual interest by emphasizing differences. Like example, the one that we can see here in our slide, combining the large and small fonts, thick and thin elements, or warm and cool colors. So I hope you learned something for the continuation of this lesson. See you and God bless. Bye.